Well, Jacob Rees Mogg has well and truly gone and put his foot in it. And one of the things that we've really seen since, shall we say, Jacob has been brought into the cabinet fold is that prior to this, he had an image that he was this really smart, intellectual Tory, you know, Tory tough boy. Let's say it what it was, who had all the answers to everything. He was really this new genius. And you may remember at the time when like momentum was this really sort of big building force in the Labour Party, whether he was behind its creation or not, there was this other force called Mogmentum. Now it didn't last, but it was really, really foolish, but it was used to sort of very much build up sort of his personal profile. And it's part of the reason he ended up being catapulted eventually into sort of more senior cabinet roles. But as is the case of sort of very much people like this, when they get catapulted into the limelight, that's when the spotlight starts to show on them. And sooner or later, because they are under a lot of constant media pressure, a lot more than, say, they formerly were, everything they then start to say gets taken note of in very, very significant ways. And what they say can have other knock on effects as well. And of course, Jacob Rees-Mogg is one of those people where, shall we say, since he has sort of taken center stage in the limelight, try as he might to even sometimes keep out of it, he doesn't really have a lot of, shall we say, very intelligent stuff to say, and has had a lot of car crash interviews and even, shall we say, media appearances in the past. But of course, he's done one properly today. But before we get into that today, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. So what has Rees Mogg done? Well, you've noticed a lot of the, so we say, pro-mini budget Tories, who he is one of them, have been desperately trying to defend Truss and Katang's mini budget to the hilt. And what they are trying to do, or at least get the idea across, is that all this, this massive pound fall, this potential, economic crash or even housing market slowdown or crash that looks like we could be very well headed for, is not the fault of the mini budget. It's just outside economic forces, and they are blaming anything and anyone who is saying anything about this, when you can literally see the time when this was sort of the market chugging along comes Kersey Kratang, and it just goes literally like that. It is the only thing that happened in and around that event, and it didn't happen to any other country. We've talked about this before, how they're desperately trying to sort of say, oh, all these other countries are having, similar crises, and they are, but we're being a lot more affected than they are. So what did Jacob Rees-Mogg have to say? Well, I believe it was on the BBC Radio 4's Today program, and he had a pop not only at what we've just said, trying to blame it on outside forces, but he also had a pop at the BBC saying that it was well, against the BBC's requirement for impartiality. So he had this to say. So despite the immediate reaction to Kersey Kratang's fiscal event in September, Rees-Mogg said this: "You suggest something is casual when it is a speculation. It is which has caused the effect in pension funds. It is not necessarily the mini budget. I think jumping to conclusions about casually is not something is not meeting the BBC requirements for impartiality." And of course, we've got another fiscal statement due on the 31st of October. But he has also said that that pensions are not at risk. That is what he's desperately trying to do. But if there is a pension crisis, then oh boy, are the Tories really going to get it? But he was not the only one, because the Lib Dems responded very, very quickly to his statement. So the Lib Dems came out with a statement and said that Rees Mogg's bluff and bluster will do nothing to reassure people worried about their mortgages, pensions, and living standards. He admits his own mortgage has gone up, but won't take action needed to help millions terrified of losing their homes as interest payments go through the roof. Daisy Cooper, the deputy Lib Dem leader, said, "It shows that the Conservative ministers are refusing to take responsibility for their actions and are totally out of touch with struggling families, pensioners at a time of this government U-turned once and for all. It is completely out of touch in this reckless mini budget before it does any more damage." Rachel Reeves also had something to say about this as well, about of course, the GDP figures that show the dire state is because of this Tory government. Mortgage costs are soaring, leaving families worried about making ends meet, and borrowing costs are up. Living standards are down, and we are forecast to have the lowest growth in the G7 over the next 2 years. And of course, we had the IMF come in yesterday, and the IMF yesterday described the UK was like a car with two people, each trying to steer the car in a different direction. It leaves us an international laughingstock. So Jacob Rees-Mogg can't keep his mouth shut, of course. And all in all, it doesn't make for sort of very good radio. He hasn't come out well of this. And ultimately, if there is going to be a pension crisis, which these gilts, which are heavily connected with a lot of pensions, the rumor originally what was when the first intervention took place that there was a big pension company hours away from bankruptcy, and that's why the Bank of England had to step in back just again a couple of weeks ago when they did their first intervention. So it could be very likely that the second intervention is an attempt to maybe even try and stave off something else that we don't yet know about. So all in all, it's very, very worrying. But I'll tell you now, these comments, if there really is a pension crisis, oh boy, is Jacob Rees-Mogg going to get it. And this one, shall we say, rising star in the Conservative movement is going to become an absolute meteor plummeting to earth very, very, very quickly. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button on your way out. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.